So if we move on, why do you think people become addicted to these things though? Right? It's quite the question because, yeah, okay, we're using it to cope, but how is it helping us to cope? If we've got, all these things going on, why do we turn to these substances in order to cope with them? So basically what happens with any substance or any process, anything that we do on a daily basis, it produces chemicals in your brain. These chemicals are called neurotransmitters. I'm not going to get into this too technically. I'm not a doctor. I'm just going to briefly kind of go over some of the neurotransmitters that are in your brain that are produced when you use substances, when you gamble, when people watch internet pornography, whatever it is. These substances are always produced. So the first one I want to talk about is serotonin. Serotonin is when you feel good. It's when you feel happy. It's when you feel full of joy. When this comes out in your brain, it's like, wow, I feel really good right now. It's actually produced by bread too. I don't know if you knew that. That's kind of interesting, right? The second one I want to talk about is epinephrine. Epinephrine is adrenaline. So right now up here, I've got epinephrine going through my brain like crazy because I got a lot of adrenaline running through me right now. I'm up here talking in front of you people. I'm excited. This is great. I'm loving this subject. It's something I'm really passionate about. So I've got a lot of epinephrine going on in my brain, right? The third one I want to talk about is something that's called norepinephrine. Sounds the same, but the difference is this is the thing that's involved in what's called the fight or flight response. You guys ever heard of that? It's quite a common thing that gets thrown around a lot. So when you get anxious, when you feel afraid of something, your brain goes into this state of emergency. It's like you're hyper aware of everything that's going on. This is the way we're made. It's amazing the way we're made when you study this stuff. Your brain goes into this state of, oh my God, what have I got to do right now? So you're standing there looking around. This is because norepinephrine has been produced in your brain. GABA is one that I often look at and go, who decided to call it that? Basically, this is involved in this is the big one that's involved in alcohol. When people drink, GABA is the thing that regulates the production of something that's called dopamine, which is what I'm going to talk about next. And when people drink, GABA is removed from the brain's process, which increases the amount of dopamine that's released with no control. So like I said, the last one that I want to talk about is called dopamine. This neurotransmitter is the neurotransmitter that is involved in every single addiction that we deal with. Every single one. If we talk about cocaine, for example, cocaine involves serotonin, it involves norepinephrine, and it involves dopamine. If we talk about gambling, it involves epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. If we talk about alcohol, it involves serotonin, GABA, and dopamine. Dopamine is the one common denominator that is involved in every single addiction that there is. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that, when I was in school, and we were talking about how to remember what these neurotransmitters do, the professor says, if you want to remember what dopamine does, what are the first two letters? Do. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that gets produced in your brain anytime your brain is telling you that you need to do this thing. If you think about it in your life as you grow up, when you're born and you get love from your parents, when you get hugs, when you get told what a great job you've done, dopamine gets produced in your brain. It makes you go, oh, I'm going to do that again because I got that acknowledgement, I got that love. It teaches us to do it again. When we're eating healthy foods, dopamine gets produced in your brain. It's reminding you that I need to do this again. When we get involved in relationships later on and we're intimate with people, dopamine gets produced in your brain to tell us to do that. That's where sex addiction comes in. So dopamine, when people use substances, if you imagine that dopamine has a regular level of about, let's say 200, okay? When you get a hug from mom, when you get love from mom, when you get acknowledgement from dad because you've done something really good, then the dopamine level might go to 300, let's say. It's like, wow, I'm going to do that again. When you eat a really healthy meal, when you're getting older, and you start to experiment with foods, you eat certain foods, and your dopamine level goes to 350. Wow, I'm going to do that again. When you're intimate with somebody, the dopamine level might go to 400, 450, maybe even 500, depending on that level of intimacy. Wow, I'm going to do that again. When somebody uses methamphetamine, their dopamine level goes to about 10,000. This is telling them, I need to forget all of that and focus on this. It almost hijacks your brain. It's quite an interesting concept when we take it on.